Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm Colonel Dave Gray. I'm the Executive Director here at the Center for Leadership and Ethics. I want to welcome you to the second in our series of Courageous Leader Speakers. Tonight's speaker is Mr. Steve Cannon, and I think you're going to enjoy his insights into leadership. Our center's theme this year is paradigm shifts, and Steve's career journey from West Point to the corporate boardroom to the business end of professional sports shows how you can adapt solid ethical and leadership skills to any situation you may find yourself in. Steve Cannon's leadership journey began with his service at West Point. A West Point honors graduate, he was also a Division I NCAA wrestler. He earned a degree in economics, the coveted Airborne and Ranger tabs, and served as a first lieutenant in West Germany during the fall of the Iron Curtain. After leaving the Army, Steve built a remarkable career in the automotive and sports industry, leading world-class organizations to record-setting successes. As president and CEO of Mercedes-Benz USA from 2012 to 2015, he oversaw the Mercedes-Benz, Maybach, Sprinter, and Smart brands in the United States, driving over $20 billion in annual revenue. Following his tenure at Mercedes-Benz, Steve became vice chairman and CEO of AMB Sports and Entertainment, a key division of the Arthur M. Blank family of businesses. In this role, he oversaw the Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta United, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and PGA Tour Superstore, managing day-to-day operations and driving substantial revenue growth. Under his leadership, Mercedes-Benz Stadium became one of the nation's premier venues, hosting the Super Bowl, College Football National Championship, the SEC Championships, global soccer friendlies, and major concert events. Steve has remained a tireless supporter of America's military and has led numerous initiatives to honor service members and their families. Steve has personally led multiple NFL-directed USO tours, visiting troops in Iraq, Kuwait, Romania, and Bulgaria, the latter two marking the first U.S. sports franchise to visit troops in these remote locations. In 2014, Steve and his fellow West Point classmates co-founded the Johnny Mack Soldiers Fund, a nonprofit committed to honoring military service by providing scholarships to veterans and military families, particularly to children of fallen and disabled family members. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me with a warm welcome of Mr. Steve Cannon. Steve.
All right. First off, good evening, everybody. Thanks to the soup, to the comm, to Kim, who walked me around today. And I will tell you, I am allergic to lecterns. I hate lecterns because that means I'm lecturing you, which is, so whenever I do this, I grab a seat because I would much rather have a conversation about leadership, which is what we're going to have. And I'm hoping that that we'll have enough time to get into a dialogue and I can talk about anything you want to talk about, from leadership, which I'm very passionate about, to sports, to the car business. So it's my second time here at VMI. Last time I was looking just like you. I was a firstie at West Point, 1986, and I came here for a leadership conference. In fact, although I can only vaguely remember it, I did meet Forrest Pogue, who was Marshall's official biographer, and to this day, I still have a signed 3-volume set that sits in my library and is a reminder of that trip. So I came to VMI once for leadership, and I'm back here, believe it or not, 39 years later, in a kind of different role to hopefully talk to you a little bit about leadership and maybe some of my journey. So let me start with this. If this is essentially me as a 12-year-old kid, and back in those days, we played Army Man. That's what those green figures are. All we wanted to do was play with matchboxes and talk about cars. And when we weren't talking about those two things, we were out playing sports from dawn till dusk. So when I think back now, I have had maybe the perfect career for a 12-year-old boy. So this is what I've been doing since over the last 39 years since my last visit. So graduated from West Point 1986. I was stationed over in Germany. I was stationed there during the fall of the Iron Curtain. Mr. Gorbachev bring down this wall. We were a border patrol unit, so we were right up front dealing with the uprisings that then turned into the peaceful crossings. And so I got to be there to see through that amazing chapter that happened beautifully and peacefully, but that ended kind of an equilibrium that existed for almost 40 years. And what happened right after that is that the U.S. demanded a peace dividend. So my class and the Army in general, there was a massive reduction in force that suddenly had all of us changing our calculus on whether to stay in or get out. I made the decision that after my 5-year commitment that I was going to go out and serve in a different way. And that's one of my themes is I've changed uniforms, but I've never stopped serving. Every place that I've gone, I've found ways to use that platform to give back to the communities that I serve, to honor the military. I did that a lot at West Point, at Mercedes-Benz, and even more with the Falcons. So I might have changed my uniform. I kind of like this one better, but I've never stopped serving. So my first job out of the Army was the chief of staff for the president and CEO, and I had an amazing couple of years with him, and he sort of changed my life. He was a mentor. He liked the fact that I spoke German. I understood kind of the culture. He liked my West Point background. He liked the leadership aspect of it, didn't care a hoot that I didn't know a thing about the car business, and was willing to take time and invest in me. So he became that pivotal mentor in my life that set up my entire trajectory at Mercedes-Benz. So almost 20 years to the day from me becoming his chief of staff, I took his job as the president and CEO for Mercedes-Benz of North America, and I had an amazing journey there. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, life happens while you're planning other things. We moved the national headquarters from New Jersey down to Atlanta. In the process of that, I met a guy named Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank happens to be the owner of the Falcons, and sure enough, I found out that just as we moved down there, he started looking for an outside CEO to run his portfolio of companies. So for the last 10 years, until just this past summer, I've been running that amazing portfolio. So being part of that NFL, amazing journey, launching a brand new soccer team, building a stadium, running a PGA Tour Superstore. So those are the things that I've been doing. And what I'd like to talk about tonight is sort of the things that I've picked up in my 30 plus, almost 40-year leadership journey that started in uniform in the military as a cadet, just like you, took me out into the military as an officer, honing my leadership practice, and then using those same principles that I learned in those seats, just like all of you, that I got to practice and get some confidence as a leader, as a lieutenant in the Army, and then took those skills out into the civilian world. I'm going to share with you a few of my lessons that I learned along the way, but they're lessons that have guided me throughout my entire career. So about 15 years ago, I was asked to come and speak at West Point. And That can be an intimidating thing because when you show up at West Point and you're talking to a bunch of cadets, as a former cadet, you want to say something that's meaningful. You don't want to just mail that in. So as I thought about what am I going to talk about, I thought about let me talk to the cadets about my David Letterman top 10. Does anybody still know who David Letterman is? Is that a cultural reference? I know there's a few older folks, not older, excuse me, but folks that might recognize that. Unfortunately, I might have to change this cultural reference because David Letterman used to be on, he was like Johnny Carson's successor, The Tonight Show, and he used to do this funny bit, and it was the David Letterman top 10. So this is me imitating a guy you don't know named David Letterman, trying to do a top 10. It's actually my top 15. So it's 15 of my leadership principles that have carried me through all throughout that long career. For me, it starts with a vision. And if you don't, as a leader, have a vision, how are you supposed to inspire those people around you to do things that they don't believe they can accomplish? And so when I started building Mercedes-Benz Stadium, we were setting out to build the greatest sports and entertainment venue in the world. And in fact, our vision was that we wanted to launch a stadium that aspires to be a Ritz-Carlton. Not just a great-looking stadium, but one that delivered a level of hospitality and care to everybody that walks through the door of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So the vision for the stadium, we are a stadium that aspires to be a Ritz-Carlton. I'm going to show you right now a short video, and this is the first thing that I showed to all the Mercedes-Benz national dealers and all of my Mercedes-Benz team as I took on my new role as a CEO. And it was my opportunity to articulate a vision that would galvanize 30,000 people across headquarters and all the dealerships to get in line behind a customer care initiative. So I'll show it to you just to articulate what a vision looks like and sounds like. Let's take a look.
A Mercedes-Benz automobile brings with it the expectation that every encounter with the brand will be as extraordinary as the machine itself. As thoughtful, innovative, and breathtaking. As confidence-inspiring and worthy of trust. When our customers enter our dealerships, their standards are predetermined. They rightfully anticipate and deserve the best or nothing. They will not be disappointed. 2012 will see the introduction of the most comprehensive pledge to an extraordinary customer experience in the history of Mercedes-Benz. Every department will be mobilized. Every touch point of the brand will be examined and refined. Every employee at every dealership will be trained and equipped. We will begin immediately, and we will not rest until we are regarded as the global benchmark. Until expectations are exceeded with such frequency that the Mercedes-Benz name will be as famous for our total customer experience as it is for our legendary engineering. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Create a compelling vision. Did you hear the language in that short video? The most comprehensive pledge to the customer experience in the history of the company. Every department will be mobilized. We will not leave any leaf unturned until we are recognized as the global benchmark. What a compelling vision does is it inspires people and it gives them purpose. It makes them want to be part of something. And if you can't articulate that compelling vision as a leader, at whatever level you're leading, if you're leading a squad, if you're leading a platoon, if you're leading a department, if you're leading a company, whatever it is, it's your job as a leader to articulate what is your vision for the group that you're leading. So I'd start lesson number 1, articulate a compelling vision. Lesson number 2, and this is something that I've carried with me forever, listen more than you speak. There's a real reason why we've got 2 of these and only 1 of these. And oh, by the way, the only time you're learning, the only time you're assimilating new data is when your mouth is closed and your ears are open. I have run into so many leaders that make the mistake when they join organizations that they feel the need to demonstrate to everyone how smart they are, right? Look at it. I need to be the smartest person in the room, so I'm going to be doing all the talking. No, good leaders have a level of humility to understand that their job is not to be the smartest person in the room. Their job is to extract all the smarts that exist inside of the room, inside of the team. So listen more than you speak. The corollary to that, and where I've helped, what's been one of my most successful tools, is that I give myself permission to ask 1,000 questions. Wherever I go, my only job is to ask. And as I go through that process, I get to listen to people. I hear their points of view. I hear their view of the world. And it's helped me to coalesce and understand organizations in ways that I never would have if I didn't ask those questions. And oh, by the way, give yourself permission to ask a stupid question. There is no such thing as a stupid question. And oh, by the way, when I moved out of the car world, where I'd been from 20 years, and I moved into the business of sports, to which I knew exactly nothing, right, other than what I'd watched on television, right? The only way I was going to get effective is to learn and to absorb enough was to ask 1,000 questions. I'll give you one example of where that paid off. When I joined Mercedes-Benz, it was a toxic culture. Leadership was disconnected from the people they were leading. They didn't trust their leadership, and they performed at a pretty abysmal level. And one of the things that we did, we launched this company-wide survey asking 1,000 questions, and we said, tell us what you think about what it's like to work here as an employee. And we got brutalized. We got brutalized by our associates telling awful things about what leadership meant to them, what their daily job meant in their lives, and they gave us really sort of brutal, clear-cut guidance. Well, I will tell you, the process of listening to that feedback, then reflecting back, this is what we heard, this is what we're going to do, and I want you to hold us accountable for what we do. That process, repeated, in a very short time, transformed our company from a toxic culture to one of Fortune magazine's most respected companies in the United States, along with American Express and Apple. So I'm really proud of that accomplishment. One of my things that sits up in my mental trophy case of things that you can do. But the power of asking questions can turn something from toxic to benchmark, and you can do it not overnight. You got to build a level of trust, but that's what we were able to do by asking 1,000 questions. Set ridiculously high standards. And so whether you're going out into the military or you're going out into the civilian world, your job, our job as leaders is to set standards within our organization. And I've found that people want to be part of organizations that set ridiculously high standards. And guess what? I've never run into an organization where if you set a standard here, they're going to exceed that standard and perform here. Organizations will naturally gravitate to the standards that leaders set for the people and teams within those organizations. So if you set low standards, don't be surprised if you get low performance. Our job as leaders is to set ridiculously high standards. Trust your people. If you give them, if I shoot for the stars and I land on the moon, that's still a pretty good outcome, right? That's what setting ridiculously high standards will do. And honestly, it's a vote of confidence in your team and in your people that says, I believe in you, I trust you, so I'm not going to set a low standard for this team. I'm going to set a high standard for this team. And as you all know, and what you're going to learn when you're out in the military, and I'm sure you're living it here, every time you walk past something that's not right, that doesn't meet your standard, and you don't say something about it, you have now set that standard. You have reset the bar. So our job as leaders, all the time, not part-time, 365 days a year, every time you show up, your job is to set ridiculously high standards. This is one of my favorites, and I'll tell you a couple stories about this. But you got to be visible. Nobody wants to follow a leader that they never see, that they can't interact with, that they can't relate to. In the military, it's called battlefield circulation, right? That's what officers and NCOs do. They go to the place where they're needed. In the civilian world, the counterpart to that is management by walking around. Be present, be visible, because if they don't see you, how can they follow you? When we were setting up our stadium, a stadium which aspired to be a Ritz-Carlton, I had a ritual at every single event for the first several years of launching that. Every single game, match, concert, I'd get there when the service teams arrived. They usually arrive 3 hours ahead. And those are the ticket takers, the hospitality providers, the guest service and relations folks. So 4,000 people are the game day staff that make an NFL game or a concert effective, right? So 4,000 people. So my ritual was to start at the top, and I would walk the stadium. I'd walk every single concourse. Along the way, I would greet people. I would hug people. I would stop and have conversations. I joined the huddles. So each team, each group had their own huddle where they talk through the game and the expectations. We would normally set a play of the day standard that we wanted each of our customer service folks to aspire to during that game. So I would stop in there. I would hand out my version of a coin, and thank you, Soup, for my coin. That'll go to my most excellent coin collection that I've built up over 40 years. But I'd pick out opportunities to be seen, to relate, to shake hands, to give out hugs, and over time. So I do 5 miles per event. 5 miles. I got some comfortable walking shoes, but that was my way of being a visible leader, and everybody knew who I was. And guess what? People are willing to work to go the extra mile when they know that their leaders are going the extra mile with them. If you ask them to do a night conversion, we got to flip the stadium from soccer configuration to football configuration, which means the entire team pulls an all-nighter trying to get the lines repainted and get the stadium ready. If you don't do that with them, guess what? You're losing a little bit of your influence as a leader. So be visible. That is so important. Here's one of my favorites. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's a management guru from the 1950s. And here I am talking about culture eating strategy for breakfast as one of my most firmly held leadership beliefs in 2025. And here's what that means. As a leader, I am the person where the buck stops when it comes to culture. And what is culture? When I say culture, and here's where I pull out my iPhone and I use this analogy. This is the single most indispensable device in our lives, right? It's easy to use. It's intuitive. With a couple of touches or swipes, you can pretty much answer any question, anytime, anywhere. And now this is like indispensable. Well, this thing is just a bit of processing power, a hunk of Gorilla Glass, and a little bit of metal casing, right? That's all this thing is until you put in an operating system. The operating system is what transforms this inanimate object into a magical device that is all of our most important things in our lives. So think of culture as the operating system that governs how an organization functions. It's invisible, but guess who the master coder is for the operating system, the culture? It's the leadership. Those are the ones that manage the rituals, manage the conversations. They're the ones that can celebrate employees and say we're a culture that recognizes great performance, and we aren't afraid to put people out there and say thank you. So those are cultural moments that you as a leader, if you're paying attention, will curate. So I just want you to know that culture is perhaps the most important thing My thesis, and I've been living this over the course of being a CEO for a lot of different companies for a bunch of years now, is that if you pay attention to a culture, the outcomes will follow. If you pay attention to the outcomes, bad things will happen. So an example I shared with a group this morning is, if anybody heard of the VW, the automotive brand, they professed that they wanted to be the number one selling brand in the world. Well, there's an outcome. They started chasing that outcome, and before you know it, they got involved in this diesel cheating scandal where a software engineer rewrote a program for EPA testing that essentially told the engine to behave differently when it's being tested, give a false signal of efficiency. So they cheated, right? Somehow, inside of that organization that was chasing an outcome, they started cheating. Cost the brand billions of dollars in lost trust. So that is what happens when you chase an outcome. For us as leaders, spend all your time curating the best, most vibrant culture. If you create that place where people love what they do, they love showing up at work, they feel connected to that vision that you've now so beautifully articulated. They feel that their leaders care for them because they're visible and I can see them and I can reach out and I can touch them and I can talk to them. If you do those things, you're creating a culture that will unleash power, that will, I would argue, propel your organization to new and to different levels. So please, leaders, you're responsible for culture. Think about culture intentionally. Culture is going to happen whether you pay attention to it and curate it or not. It's going to happen. So wouldn't you, as the leader, the chief coder of that culture, don't you want to be involved in it? Don't you want to be intentional about what is the culture that I want to have inside of my organization? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. I heard that at a conference. I've even forgotten where that is. And it resonated. It was like a light bulb went off for me. And I took that insight and I tucked it in my kit bag. And I've been carrying that with me ever since. So I would encourage all of you, wherever you go, you are all on a leadership journey. And your journey is never done, right? So I am a student of leadership in the same way that you are students of leadership. My kit bag is always open for new insights. And when I hear something that I love and that resonates with me as a leader, I incorporate that into my practice. That was one of the most powerful ones. This is the value system on which that operating system rests. And this is the set of core values that Arthur Blank used to take Home Depot and grow it from 4 stores to a $300 billion market cap company. And I had lots of time to talk with Arthur about the things that matter most. And all he'd ever want to talk about was the core values. Core values, core values, core values. Wherever he went, even though the store count grew from 4 to 500 to 2,000, the only thing that he, as the founder, would talk about were core values, and said, if I focus on these things, my people, no matter where I am, are going to do the right thing. And that's what an operating system does. Think about it as a leader. You can't have line of sight to your team and to their performance 365 days a year, 24/7. But if you've paid attention to the value system and the operating system, that will pretty much ensure that the right thing will happen even when you're not there. Whereas the VW example, if all I say is sell, 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 and we got to be number one, and we got to do this, people are going to start looking for hack codes. They're going to start trying to find ways to get there, and cheating and things that you don't like as a leader is going to seep into your organization. So culture and values, nothing is more important than an organization. And guess what? The leaders are the folks that are responsible for those things inside of an organization. Here's something that I've added along the way. I sometimes use spicier language, like don't be a you-know-what, just to make my point. I've run into a lot of folks that give themselves permission just because they're a leader and they're in a position of power that I can treat you somehow in a cavalier way. I know the opposite to be true. I can be nice. And when I go around that stadium, I'm nice to everybody. I'm hugging people. I'm high-fiving people. I'm thanking people. Everywhere I look, I find somebody to thank. So I'm a pretty nice guy. Does that mean that I'm a layup? Does that mean I'm a pushover? I would tell you I'm not. And I can have really hard conversations that talk about performance, that can give feedback to people, but I've learned how to give feedback, hard feedback, in a way that doesn't blow a person up. And I've watched people in public get blown up by their leaders. And I asked the question, in what world does blowing a person up, then thinking that they're gonna recover from that humiliation or that lack of respect, and then become a better performer? So I read this book, Leading with Kindness. Add it to your reading list. There is a way to lead well, effectively, challenge people, set ridiculously high standards, but you can do it with a level of human kindness that makes people say, I'll do anything for that person, right? That's what kindness will get you. So here's a point that I make all the time, is that as a leader, you are on stage all the time. Your people are watching everything that you do and everything that you say. And they are actually looking to make sure that what you do and what you say are synchronized with one another. The minute you say something that differs from your behavior, right, then suddenly you're losing credibility with the people that you lead. So I just want you to know that you're never allowed to have a bad day as a leader. You're never allowed to bring whatever stuff you had at home with you, or you broke up with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and I'm really a little bit angry, so let me transport that anger. But if I've got a culture that says you're not allowed to do that, and then I show up as the leader and I do that, I'm setting a brand new example that is absolutely not acceptable. So I just want you to know you are on stage. You're being observed. You're not allowed to have a bad day. And if you got to let off some steam, go off stage, right? There are off stage places. And in the Disney world, they call it good show and bad show. Good show is the only thing that's allowed to happen in front of the curtain. Bad show, hard conversations, I got to cry in my thing because I got overwhelmed. Whatever that bad show is, that's not allowed to happen in front of guests and the people that you lead. So as a leader, you're on stage, your words and actions always have to align. The minute they don't, you're going to get caught. It's not a question of if. They will notice that because they pay attention to you, and your leadership practice will be immediately undermined. So Dan Quinn, went to Iraq with Dan Quinn, great guy. He's the coach of the Commanders now. Nothing but respect for this guy. Is any Commanders fans in here? There's got to be a couple. Come on, we're in Virginia. So this is an amazing man, and I hold up coaches in the leadership world in a lot of ways. So if you think about what a coach does, the coach's only job is to bring the best out of the people that they lead. It's their passion, it's their mission. One of the things that coaches do better than everybody else, and it's something that you need to think about in your practice, and certainly in the military, out of the military, as leaders, we have to be feedback machines. So what do coaches do? They're on the field, they're observing their players. Every time something happens that is either not them bringing their A game or not fulfilling their correct assignment, what does a coach do? He's going to either pat him on the back, kick him in the butt. He's going to give that feedback, and that feedback is going to be immediate. That's the only way to give feedback. Unfortunately, in the corporate world, we've gotten really lazy. We don't think as leaders it's our job to give our people feedback all the time. We hide behind HR-related things like the quarterly performance review or the annual performance review. And let me tell you right now, if you're handing out feedback on a quarterly basis, you're failing as a leader. Your job is to give feedback all the time. One little story, my daughter's out working in her job. I'm coach for my kids. They call me with their business problems, and she said she wasn't getting much feedback from her boss, And she just wanted to understand, hey, how am I doing? Is there a way I can be doing better? And I said, Cass, this is something that you should bring to your leader and say, hey, I'd love to have a sit down. I really would love some feedback. She did exactly what her dad told her to do. And unfortunately, her leader rolled her eyes and said, oh, Cass, I'm too busy for that. So I like, shocking example, but that kind of leadership exists everywhere in corporate America. If someone comes to any one of you and asks for honest feedback and you blow them off, sorry, that is a failure of leadership. We are at a leadership school. Leadership is the holy grail as far as I am concerned. So feedback is part of it. People need feedback to understand, how do I get better? Everybody wants to get better. If I'm working in a vacuum, I can't figure that out. But if the coach or the boss or the squad leader, platoon leader, CEO gives me that feedback, I can start to orient my activity and I can spend time properly and get better. Best feedback, fast feedback, and you need to give it all the time. This is one of my favorites. Appreciation is your most powerful leadership tool. Pass out appreciation as frequently and as generously as you possibly can. In fact, I go out when I'm at the stadium, I find moments to appreciate. And in fact, we installed this Heroes of Hospitality wall is 60 feet high, and it's in a prominent place in the stadium where everybody gets to see it. And what we do is we recognize heroes of hospitality. We appreciate them. We even created a little ceremony when we got the people that were being inducted onto the Wall of Fame, the Heroes of Hospitality. We created that ceremony. We fed them breakfast. Then we started our game day event. Then we got even a little smarter. We said, let's make this appreciation even more important. We let those hospitality providers invite their families to that recognition moment where I got up and got to appreciate them, read what they did, have that moment in front of everybody. But more importantly, they got to invite their people, the people that mattered most. And the level of pride, I got tears at every one of these heroes of hospitality. Guess what? That heroes of hospitality cost us nothing. A little bit of paint, a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of thinking, and then creating a ritual around it that says we're going to recognize people and we're going to appreciate them for what they do. I would argue this might be one of the most powerful things. So think of appreciation as rocket fuel. The more fuel I put in an engine, the farther I'm able to go. And if you use your position to recognize people, that's going to go a long way. I had a small ritual that I used to do is I'd write out little handwritten thank yous. I had my own little, from the CEO, Stephen Cannon, and then I'd scroll in my lousy handwriting. I'd scroll out a thank you of appreciation with a specific call out. Well, guess what I found out when I walked around the office? Remember management by walking around, get around a little bit? I'd find those things pinned up on desks for months and months afterward. So do not underestimate this. It is really, really powerful. This is a red line in the sand for me. Red line, everybody understands that concept, red line. Don't ever cross this red line if you work in an organization where I'm the leader. You're never allowed to undermine a person's dignity. There is no scenario by which you can humiliate someone publicly in front of a group or even privately and think that that's okay. You're never allowed to give yourself permission as a leader, even though you're in a position of power. You could do that, just not in my organization, and certainly not in a well-led organization. And believe it, as self-evident and as obvious as this sounds, I've watched leaders humiliate people in public, and it's made me embarrassed. It's made my skin crawl. And as a leader, I was offended. And when I finally got to a position where, that's never going to happen. And I tell every one of my leaders, if I ever see any one of you undermining in a public way someone's dignity as a human being, guess what? I'm going to walk you to the door, and I'll walk you to it when I see you immediately. I'll take your key card and I'll block you from our system. So that's a red line. I can't emphasize it enough. Back to my being kind Be nice to people. You're going to get more results with nice. Don't mistake nice for soft. Those are not synonyms. You can be both nice and direct and hard and set high standards, but never, ever, ever undermine a person's dignity. Red line. This is one that belongs in our digital age, and I will give this to all of you, not just as leaders, but as family members, as boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. At the end of the day, what is the most important is giving yourself to whatever it is that you're doing. And if I'm at a meeting, my job is to be in that meeting. Guess what I've seen so many times in my leadership practice? I've seen leader at the end of the table. I've got a team presenting what they've been working on to present to the CEO, and not me, that CEO, I would never do that. But the leader's at the end of the table texting or checking emails, or he's got his laptop open. So I have a rule. My personal rule is I never bring my device into an important meeting, because unfortunately all of us have been classically conditioned to reach for our phone the minute we hear a buzz, a vibration, a beep, whatever it is. And before you even know it, before your brain is even kicked in, you've got it and you're looking at it. That's why I keep it out of my reach. If I'm going to a meeting, I need people to understand that I am there 100%. How many people have gone out and seen a couple on a date at a restaurant and they're both on their phones? Has anybody seen that scenario? So this is like, think about that, right? Leave your phone. If you're going out on a date, go out on a date. Have that quality time with whoever it is that you love and you want to be with. If you're with your kids, be with your kids. But if you think you're with your kids while you're also here in this device, you're wrong. And in fact, the thing that I preached to every one of our 4,000 hospitality people when game day is we want to deliver Ritz-Carlton hospitality inside of our stadium. The minute you look down at your phone, you're out of the game. You might as well not even be in the stadium, because guess what? Somebody who needed your help just walked by and you missed a moment of truth because you're not present. You're out of the game. So think about that as a leader. We all have to develop what I call coping mechanisms. These are realities of our lives. Digital devices aren't going away, but how you manage that device in your leadership practice is super, super important. And the best way is to not have it with you. Not every single email or text or Instagram, whatever it is, needs to be responded to in a nanosecond. If I go into a meeting, I bring my full self into that meeting, I come back, I can handle that when I get back. So please be present or don't show up. This is one of my favorites. Leaders need to connect dots. And one of my favorite sayings, I forgot where I picked it up. In the absence of information, people will connect the dots in all the wrong ways. So it's our job all the time as leaders to provide context. If you provide context, whether the moment you just went through was a celebratory, wonderful moment, let me provide the context on why that was so important, and what you just did to help that fan made so much sense and is something that everyone else should try to mimic. That's context. Leaders are context setters and dot connectors. I'm going to share a video of one of my most painful days in my entire career. It was the day that I was at the Super Bowl, my first year in the league, and we're leading the Patriots 28-3. And you all know that we didn't win that game, right? We lost it in the last minute in overtime. It was one of the most painful losses, defeats, gut punches to our fan base, to our organization, to our players. So it was a moment where everybody was devastated. It was my job as the leader to provide context, both for our fans and for our employees. And we put this video together that I want to show you that helps illustrate what I mean by context.
Brotherhood is not the product of prosperity. Brotherhood is a bond formed by commitment in times of darkness. We're hurting. our effort, our passion, our fight. We gave it all. Frustratingly close, but ultimately short. Devastated. We're now faced with two choices. We stay down, allow this moment to defeat us, or we absorb this pain. We feel every ounce of it. And then we get back up and we fight harder. Because we did not get what we came for. This moment will not define us. Our response will. So we dig deeper. We pick ourselves up. We come back stronger than before. And we push those next to us to do the same. This is the standard our brotherhood demands. Our story, our dream. We've built the foundation. No, our brotherhood was not lost in the darkness. The darkness just fuses our bond and fuels our destiny. In brotherhood, we fall. In brotherhood, we trust. In brotherhood, we rise.
So that was connecting dots. That was how do you put context around the worst day of your life? How do you give your associates and your fans something to believe in that doesn't say we are a cursed franchise, we're built to lose, the 28-3, the biggest comeback loss in history. So if you let that kind of messaging linger, people, once again, will connect the dots. So as leaders, go connect dots for them. There's no way to turn a 28-3 devastating overtime loss into a victory, but you can wrap context around it, and there's going to be times where your team wins, and there's going to be times where your team loses. You, as the leader, have to wrap context around it so that we can pull meaning from that event that I can then apply to my future endeavors. That was our effort to provide context to both our associates who were devastated and our fan bases who was devastated. Here's one I picked up on my travels through Silicon Valley. Fail fast is a mantra out there, but here's what really resonates with me. Failure is data. I've run into a lot of organizations where failure is the boogeyman. They create and pack on emotional baggage to the notion of failing. If you do that inside of an organization, everyone will be so afraid of the boogeyman, failure, that they will avoid it at all costs. Guess what that means in an organization? They won't stretch, they won't push, they won't innovate because they'll have to hold back 15, 20%, whatever it is, to avoid that boogeyman called failure. But if you defang failure, and you just make it data that says this way doesn't work, let's go in a different direction, you're able as an organization to be agile and to pivot. And no one's going to get it right 100% of the time. And if you think about Amazon, they were a book company that iterated, failed 1,000 times, but kept regenerating. And now this initial project that was about selling books is cloud computing, and next to Walmart, the biggest retailer on the planet. So they've invented businesses along the way because they weren't afraid to fail. And guess what? As a leader, if somebody fails, you don't build a statue and say, rah, rah, we failed, but you don't humiliate them. You don't turn the failure into the boogeyman. You pick them up. You provide context like I just showed you, and you have people get up, brush themselves off, and want to go back at it again and bring the same level of commitment, conviction, and passion. So failure is data. And my last one is the glass is always half full. I've got a natural optimistic bias, but I would argue that our job as leaders is to bring the best out of organizations, to have people achieve things as a team that they sometimes don't even believe that they can do. Well, guess what? You're not going to get there if your worldview is that the glass is half empty and also all I see is what's wrong. You need to motivate. So the glass is half full. It's always half full. And for me, it's really 3/4 full. I'm going to find that silver lining. I'm going to recognize defeat. I'm going to recognize failure. I'm going to take whatever lessons and move on to the next thing to try to get better. And listen, I'm now done. It all comes down to servant leadership. I learned that at West Point. I learned that almost 40 years ago. Your job as a leader is to serve the people in your organization. Somewhere in corporate America, we lost track of that. And there's a lot of CEOs that think they're the most important thing. I'm this big honking boss. I'm running this big organization. I got a big pay package. I got stock options. I fly in a private plane. And all of a sudden they think I'm the most important thing. And they've forgotten really, for me, the most important aspect of leadership is my only job is to humbly serve the organization. My only job when I walked those 5 miles every game was to fire up our team, to serve them, to help make them better. So it's about them, not about me. And this era of rock star CEOs, we need to put that away and tuck this, please, into your leadership travel kit. Servant leadership is the appropriate way to lead, whether you're in the military and officers eat last, or whether you're running an organization like the Atlanta Falcons or Mercedes-Benz. So that's it. 15 of my most deeply held leadership beliefs. I hope 1 or 2 might resonate with you. I don't know if we have time for a couple of questions. If there's anything that anybody might want to ask, we got microphones over here. So I came all the way from Connecticut, and I'm not leaving until I get one question. So who's going to volunteer? There we go.
All right. Good evening, sir. I just have, I want to talk about your 7th leadership lesson. You stated to be nice as a leader, and I want to know how that treated you in the Army, because I know the Army is not the nicest place.
So I've been on the receiving end of total jerks, total expletive. And I've learned as many of my lessons from the negative example that said, when I'm the guy, when it's my organization where I get to sort of dictate the playbook and I'm the leader, I'm never going to do that. So for me, being nice has been part of my practice. If you ran into a bunch of people that I've worked with, probably the vast majority will say, yeah, Camden, he's a pretty nice guy. Because I always try to treat people well. I never give myself permission to treat people shoddily or to think that I'm better than them or to think that I'm more important than them and I don't have time. So, look, I wish I could say I ran into, this is widespread, lead with kindness. That's why I gave you the book. Go read it. Try to take away a couple things for your own practice along the way. And please don't be a jerk, because there's plenty of those out there.
Yes.
We don't need any more.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I believe that one of your points was to, I think one of the things you said was you're not allowed to have a bad day as a leader. And so my question about that is, like, what do you do to wake up every single day and to remind yourself so you can stay positive and have those great days as a leader?
Yeah. So my mantra in my head is, how do I bring my best self to every interaction? So in a perfect world, we would bring our best self, our most engaged self, our rested self, our focused self, and we would bring that to every single interaction. And think about the quality of that would result from you bringing your A game to every single interaction. Now, that's an impossible standard. We can't always have our A game available. But once again, if you shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. My point is, if my objective in life is to bring my best self to every single engagement, whether that's with my wife or my kids or my business associates, that's been sort of one of my mantras. And I will tell you from, my experience, it's been an absolute differentiator. So think about it. What is your best self? Bring your A game, and don't let yourself have a bad day. And if you need to have a bad day, go off stage, go grab your roommate, go yell, curse, cuss, whatever you need to do to let that go. But then when you're back on stage as a leader, you bring your best self back, or whatever the closest approximation of your best self might be.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You bet.
Good evening, sir. So throughout your career, you were in highly competitive environments, wrestling at West Point and serving in the Army. Have you noticed that there's any leadership traits that you had developed through those scenarios that didn't necessarily translate very well to the civilian world? And if so, how'd you deal with that?
So I've had to learn to slow myself down, right? So I found that I would judge my day by how much I could pack into it. So 15 pounds into a 10-pound bag. And I actually had to adapt. And I, over time, together with my assistant, said, I need you to put adequate white space into my calendar. Because if I'm just running around like a chicken with my head cut off from this meeting to that meeting to that meeting, I actually start to look a little scattered, right? I'm pinging around from this meeting to that meeting to the next meeting, and I don't have time to recollect, to find my best self, to bring it to the next iteration. So I had to adjust. My competitive brain said, let me do 15 pounds of stuff in a 10-pound day. And then over time, as I learned more, let me take some of that out of the bag. Let me give some breathing room in between so that I can bring that best self. So sometimes less is more, and that's what I had to learn.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for coming. One question that I have is, throughout my leadership experiences, one of the hardest problems that I've had with myself is not quite giving feedback to other people, but rather giving feedback to myself. What was like sort of a trait or a skill that you learned to give yourself feedback, to know that you're doing a good job and that your team has that culture that you mentioned?
So couple things. We all need battle buddies. We all need a Ranger buddy. And what I call a trust person, I call them your blind spot monitor, right? So you know what a blind spot monitor is? That's the thing in your side view mirror that lights up that says somebody's in your blind spot. Well, we all have blind spots. If you have someone, whether that's your partner, your spouse, or somebody at work, that you have a high trust relationship, that I employ people that I know and trust to be my blind spot monitor. I do have one of the things that I did take away from the Army and have applied everywhere in business is I sort of after action everything, right? I after action engagements all the time. So every time we had an event at the stadium, we would do a deep after action. Everything was talked about all the way around the room. And by ingraining that into our culture, we made that automatic. So if everybody just runs from one fire to the next, one SEC championship to the national championship to a Falcons game, like you're never going to lock in learnings. So what after actions do is everybody has to pause. You have to come together. You have to talk through what went well and what went not so well. And the minute you do that out loud with a group, that's when you lock in learning. If you just execute, move on to the next and execute again, you're not locking any learning. You're not providing that thoughtful reflection cycle, feedback cycle, after action cycle. So I that was a discipline that I grabbed in the Army, and I implemented it brutally in the sports business, because a stadium like game day is a really complex thing, from security to game day entertainment. Like thousands of things have to come together. And if you don't talk through how those things went as we launched, you're going to miss some stuff. So after action was what took us from launching in 2017 to being named by both the NFL and Major League Soccer for the best fan experience in both leagues. And that was through a dedication to feedback and after action.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Evening, sir. So, you've been a wrestler, you've been a cadet, you've been a ranger, and you've been a CEO. So, in your experiences, what is one common mistake you've noticed in yourself as a leader or leaders you've been with, and what was the solution?
So, it's a practice, right? Any good athlete knows that the more practice reps you get, the better you get, right? So I've had thousands of practice reps in the world of leadership and you guys have had a smaller number, right? And over time, as you get more reps and you see more things, your practice will get more nuanced. So I've learned over the course of my travel to speak less and listen more, to constantly give myself permission to ask the questions. So this represents not like instantaneous insight where I went to the top of the mountain and I saw a burning bush and all of a sudden I got these 15 leadership principles. This is a lifetime of practice reps where I did something not so well. I spoke too much at a meeting. I didn't get the kind of after action feedback that I needed. So all it really does take is a lifelong commitment to say, I am learning, I am growing, I get better with every interaction that I have. And whether you're at it like me for 39 years or you guys at the beginning of your leadership journey, if you think about it as a lifelong learner, if you carry that kit bag with you and fill it with whatever nuggets mean the most to you. So these are the ones that mean the most to me. And they have helped me in my practice across a lot of different domains, managing squad level to CEO level. So I've gotten a lot of different exposure at a lot of different levels. Hopefully you all will too. And it's not about, did I learn that overnight? I learned that over 39 years. But now I like to take the opportunity to share with folks like you, these are the things that made the most difference for me. And if there's one thing in there tonight that you all pack into your kit bag and take with you on your journey, I will feel like it made the trip from Connecticut worthwhile.
Thank you.
Bet. All right. Last call. So thank you for time, for your attention. I wish you all the best in your leadership journey, whatever uniform you all choose, in for service, out of service, civilian. Just remember, you can always serve no matter the uniform. The proudest part of my career is that I got to start my career in service to my country. It's framed the other 30 plus years that I've been out there doing other stuff. And I've carried that spirit of service with me. And I've made the platforms that I've been associated with do more than just deliver profit and loss. So the Falcons used salute to service. We took on and honored veterans and service members, and we did a great job there. At Mercedes-Benz, we got them to donate to a soldiers charity, raised $15 million for children of the fallen because we were able to convince our dealers that this was important and they needed to pony up the dollar. So you're never done serving. Find ways to give back. So give back was one of those core values, and that's been with me all the way along. We have an obligation, not just as leaders, but as humans, to make the people, the community, the neighborhood, the zip code, the organization that you work with, make it better. And if you can do that, give back to your community, that's the service that I'm talking about. So I hope all of you go out and reach high levels and come back and do what I'm doing in a few years. Maybe not wait 38. Maybe you could do it more quickly, but I wish you all the best and thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming to speak to us about leadership. It's just a small token of our appreciation.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Patrick.